Rang Gizin, and Luki, Gunjuki, that Letane, the Chit and Shishin, Tench, and Yamnacher, Shivari, Dineza, and Chiki, Jidane, and the Ranshan Niki, Tunda Gune Mevachilia, and Chik to Sem Yang, Pataran, but take your mare, me to the Papchan, to Chin, Dawar, Essex, Deson, Jidane. And there, Pasu Jodu Gablaya, Chiki, Yeda, Yue, Duna, Jablia, and Chiki, Chiki, New Seru, the Persia, to the middle Tushin, and Dawar, yes. And then I say, capture and Palang to the Anjik, Gabloj and Dabla, and Jala, how to Minisana to stay at in Patro, do Calapatro, Sur, Shandan, so Sosunala, Yovena, they in the Lamlia, and Duna, Jab Yeda, Yunlia, and Jik, Yangada, dinner to a minute Tushin, Dawar, yes, Tushin, Tachina, and Jik, Mansu Lunagi. Luki Juba draw down, yeah, the nigger couple of Tushin, Tower, yes, just a nigger tower said the Tundala. On the nigger drawn Canis Chevy in a Dushin, then the Jenshis in danger Dushin, getting a Jenshis in Manambas, Jenshis in Tingle, as such, or Dushin, Cassin tissue, she wrote.
Good evening. So what we focused on last week was looking at the actions of our body, our physical conduct, through utilizing mindfulness and vigilance to ensure that our way of acting is virtuous, that we do not create any harm. This is in the context of being in the first of the divisions of ethical restraint, that of refraining from misdeeds. So by utilizing mindfulness and vigilance, being aware of one's physical behavior, one first, as we saw in the 34th verse, establishes one's motivation, and then from the 35th verse through what we looked at last week, we saw that throughout our activity, before we embark, whilst we are engaging in movement, we should be aware of our surroundings and having prepared for our activity, engage in the activity, being aware of the impact our physical activity is having. And when we stop and take a break, continue then to remain vigilant. And then when we resume, continue with our mindfulness and vigilance. So in this way, we saw that no matter what we are doing, whether we are active or whether we are still, we should maintain our vigilance as well as mindfulness.
And that didn't share the answer in Nepiki, that Debbie Gablia and Louis, and the kind of story as the Gorma share.
Now we'll come to the 39th verse, which is the final verse in terms of looking at our physical behavior. And this is then whilst one is abiding, whereas last week was particularly emphasized that of movement.
Louis did a near Java Done Dinini, Kapsu Ludi Chitapu, never inshe Tower Chas.
The 39th verse. Having prepared for an action with a thought, my body will remain like this. Then periodically look to see how is my body situated.
It is in the Share the Genda Lupazu draw at Onwa that the nigger drawing Capria to Sucheorejit, that's on Shire, that the nigger nearby. That Deba that didn't been that the Yawa said most of the Yomartina and Yawiki, Drodadi, Dinani due to Corsigunda. Cesada Dineza, Luigi, ne Luigi, Titter, Neshe, Java Done, said the Danganzu Luigi, the nigger that never said the la, Danganzuki, Chico Gombro, Java and the Dambochik, Lu, Namna Che, Dundian said, and she, Chick, Zuki typical Din, can look. What to Kiro Shada and the Lani Yamsha Jada and Lu Changward there and Kichun Maku said the Deniglu Namna Chi Dunego, the Ajoro Audusine, Tagom Roach Gada, Denigi Kabla, and Dennis to Horesa Sungora that do that, just a Luki. The Nachidangi do she.
So last week, the verses we looked at were specific about movement, where and also though when we're looking at movements, included temporarily resting before once again engaging in movement, in activity. So this final verse in the subsection is when one is abiding, when one's still, for example, when one is going to engage in meditation. So when one engages, prior to engaging in meditation, one will prepare one's physical space where one is going to be seated, the environment, and so forth.
Dine zada dine ki lugi da duyatang di kana stuyo warsan lugi yani didara ne sha sha dine dugin sepe da duyatang ki rinpa di ki shasan hao wache ane dine ki jawa do ne se da dine ki duya ki jari jawa do se de jari che ba dine ki jari chen da du su stuyo gore dine tin che warsan chisa hao wache shingpa chen jari chen ma dine ki duya jiki jari chen duya ba dine song che Doyon da Bendigo Shuba na chen da ju lu do shen lu nam na chue dun den ji do shen due che an de ho re sa lu ki ti da ne sha che jawa do ne de ne do shen de ho re sa.
Look in the first two lines. Having prepared for an action with the thought, my body will remain like this. So what this means is one has the motivation to engage in a physical activity, again, such as meditation. So one has this motivation, and what's clear to one, I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to sit in this manner. So one prepares oneself before engaging in this particular activity.
Denegi da den diri che denegi chasan hao go che diri che denegi ma de chaiwe che la dene song che ane ma jik yang cham tun ma zhuge badu an se ore dene ni gao su lu di jida bur ne ba yin she da ora cha se de da kabre ya su su lu de da 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 jig de cha da garan de de min du sen be ge du shi ne ane xi xin yi ba du shi ne da ba che ore da xi xin yi ba da ore dine tane ane jike dada due me na yang tenpe zinje ya dusin dada due ba che gore ya xa kapsu si de kapsu lu di dida jida buru si de kabre liya ane lu di kasi nyema deshi nyema due ba na xin daga dang duwe mindu siya de bende gangba gizhung siya de kabre liya dusi jide gangba di paa na yi de gangba paa kyang siya dusi gizhung ma jiba de yon si girwa ane la nyi nyamsha mi xe ba da de yon si girwa on dine ki duwe mindu se kabre liya dusin da hores 다제 되네 잠바 시신이 봐다 되네 잠비기다 되지 어다든지 다다 되면은 야 잠비 진지야 다다 되바 도시 오래서 값수 리디지다 불 내바 인시 다워자스.
So the first two lines is about one's preparation. So one is deciding, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to sit in this posture, perhaps cross-legged if one is comfortable. And then one will decide, I will sit for this duration, this period of time. And then one sits and starts. But one then doesn't forget one's physical posture. One doesn't completely lose mindfulness and vigilance in relation to one's physical posture. We see in the third and fourth line. Then periodically look to see how is my body situated. So in other words, from time to time, and just one state remains aware of one's body. Has one started to slouch? Has one's legs extended and is one's no longer sitting cross-legged? And so forth. So in other words, one continues to utilize mindfulness and vigilance in relation to one's body whilst engaging in the activity. The first two lines were about the preparation. The third and fourth line is about maintaining mindfulness and vigilance during the activity.
Shugores, then should be Gablada, Tato, Tata, Minus, Caprelia, Shishing Chevache, the Nikitata Dumena, and those in the Shishi, Tempetentia, to start at your Hores at Dutantice. That in a young also near Cortio Martina, the new Captilina, and the Yumbat Ma, Yeba, Masala Papchiva, dus near. And the lava Yeba, the temper color Chayada, and the lava. Company Kodo Ma Yang and the Lava Yumba Company Matus Yang yet to sneak or essay. The ne Chike and the ne Sunda did need you color to ever dig and the Chike Sina dig Pando ever to you want to capture those in a near Horace, near Tadinesia, or those in a near Horace, some water dinner. Yeah, but what those near or
what this verse then is clear about is that we need to be vigilant, use vigilance in terms of our physical posture whilst we're engaging in meditation, just to be sure first we set our motivation for how long and what posture, and then to make sure that we are sitting in the way that we know is good for our body and for our meditation. And what one can then add further, it's not explicitly stated here, but when one lies down to go to sleep, then one should lie down in the lion posture on the right-hand side of one's body with the right palm underneath the head and I think it's the ring finger, the second one next to the small finger, over one's nostril, just closing one's right nostril. And in that posture, then one goes to sleep. So again, one would use mindfulness mindfulness or recollection or memory. So mindfulness would recall, now I'm going to sleep. I sleep in this posture, the same posture as the Buddha. And then one uses vigilance just to make sure as one falls asleep, one is going to sleep in that posture.
Anda lugi kunju kor draw da never draw da devan never da denegit just or said my shisar. That denma that semgi kunju ko tawadelia sure.
We're in the first of the three types of ethical restraint, that of restraining from misdeeds. And now we've looked at the first subsection from the 34th verse to here, the 39th, which is looking at the body. And now we come to the next section within the ethics of refraining from misdeeds, and that is looking at the mind.
On that in the same day, Gary Mibachilia, Kitina, Tusine. Mine and just do such a sure in Mata, the negim, Shuadelia, Semgi, Langin, Yobani, Chula, Sembi, Gachin La, Chitara Taba, Mutual, and the other baby Kunji Tax.
The 40th verse. Thoroughly and diligently check that the crazed elephant mind has not become loose, but remains tied to the mighty pillar of reflecting on the Dharma.
Onda semgi langchin yoba ni sidang anzo semdi langmochin yoba na shinri esi orda jitene ya jina sem ngazo semdi langmochin yoba sedi ming ti tabare pechawa mare nyuda pero chawa ne langchin yoba sedi jike be gazegale gyuchene ane jike mi kangba gaduli ya kangba na toya la garine ane chomya la so mi ne so ya ji kanga mongbu 제야라 소용고로 바디네 살랑 중요한 바세디 배디 수부 첨보나 가야래 빨리 하고 자되로 봐 제사 디네 살랑 중요한 바세디로 제상 한수 셈디랑 중요한 바 랑중요한 바세디 배세나다 민디 랑중요한 바게 자 랑중요한 바세디 내가 셈디 다 가르스네 셈 고롱 직까지 갈려야 지게 남명게 원기다 당한 주게 제가 Gabriele Chapake, Yul Pajun, Chapake, Gabriele Anajik, or J. Kondake, Yul Pajun, Kondake, and then I get Yata, Shedan Yata, Denigi, Tado Yalosoba, then the Kurjip Yalosota, Mother de Lanjene, and the Digi Diva, Jiggy Sapchambur Sagorba, she said, in the Lanchin Yoba, Simki Lanchin Yoba, said, Lucy or the same delay, Lanchin Yoba, Siming Tabare.
The line order in the Tibetan and English is a little mixed. So in English, we start with the second line, that the crazed elephant mind. So here, we've come across this illustration before, this analogy before, where the mind is likened to that of a crazed elephant. Crazed in the sense that the mind seems to go all over the show with no apparent rhyme or reason. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there. So for this reason, it's likened to a crazed, and then it's likened to an elephant in that it potentially can cause such great distraction. And then the second reason, that it's very difficult to tame or subdue. So one can imagine how difficult it would be to tame a big, powerful animal like an elephant. So that's one meaning. And the other is that it can cause such distraction, in particular, because it's crazed. So in other words, it moves all over the show as if there's no rhyme or reason. And this we can recognize when we try and sit quietly and we're wanting to meditate on a particular topic. But in no time, our mind has gone off. And it's gone off either, most commonly, to objects of attachment, sometimes to objects of anger, sometimes it's pride or criticism, or the mind is engaging in criticism. The mind's going off, engaging in all these various thoughts, just as if it were a crazed elephant.
차단기 율파 마땅하지 아니 지게 심지 가신시랑 저 지단 벤데 지게 저게 다사의 행동 전부 가와 전부로 시스와 전부 나중에 봐 다샤바네 자타 다샤바데 봐서 줘야라고 말와 어디나 신당은 저게 심비 가신시다 되니게 개비 samno chayag yudela ane kachen siming tabare chisan de kachen se chola sembe kachen la sidu nane susugi nyamlin chik chegi chik chegi si keilang bege da nyamlin chigi chödela ya ane sembe kachen se on dela ya dagore se sembe chödela sembe ge migbege dine migba kachen dela 미바 제대다가 지금냠는 디 지긴 선배게 소수게 자와 제류게 냠는 디 지긴 선배 냠는 제게 미유최지 여러와 데라 아니 셈지 가신사 되도 데라 아니 나한테 셈지 데라 봐 다고래 지다 다봐 지다 다봐 미쇼와 되네게 다제 파샹달라 남면 모두 마송하지 데라 다샤고래서 다다스 되네 데레 미체 셈데 데레 미네 샤고레스 원도나다 다시데
So we look just before I start. So we're going to go from in symmetrical order of the Tibetan will be the second line in the English, the fourth line in the English, and then up to the third line in the English. So now Geshe's commentary. So that we have this crazed elephant mind means a mind that is not as abiding on virtue in the way that we intend or we intend to. So one sits in meditation, wanting to meditate on a particular topic, a particular virtuous topic of the Dharma, but this mind, in a crazy way, rushes all over the show with no apparent reason, or with no apparent system. It's just going all over the show. What we have not yet done is now the final line, tied the mind to the mighty pillar of reflecting on the Dharma. So the mighty pillar, if one imagines when one has tamed a crazed elephant, one can then easily tie it to a pillar. And then the elephant will remain subdued with a pillar. It's not going to try and knock it over. It's not going to try and pull it out of the ground. It will remain with it because this elephant is no longer crazed. It's now been tamed or subdued. Here, what the mighty pillar that we need to tie our mind to is that of reflecting on the Dharma. So this refers to whichever virtuous topic of the Dharma one is wanting to meditate on, reflect on. This is the pillar that we need to tie our mind to, so that our mind abides still, focused on this particular Dharma topic. And the way to do it, now moving up, is to ensure through mindfulness and vigilance that the mind has not become loose, but remains tied to that mighty pillar of the Dharma. So it's mindfulness and vigilance which ensures that our mind remains focused on this particular topic of the Dharma, which is the mighty pillar to which we have tethered our mind.
Sem launching your banashin di, sem di, and the Kawata Wars and Susugi, Yaman di Chigi Sebe, Kalambi, Kalangbe, Jawa Chig, Chiglaya, Chetelia, Semdi, and Delia at Semdi, Miba Delia Tawores, that Miba the Tasidida, Miba Del Taharan meet Dogores, because Semdi, Shanda Matawache, Taharang, and Dogores, Tita Tapa, Micho was in the Dendigi, Miba Chile Mine, Midu Shandachi, Jenson, Sem Church, or what is the Micho, Taharan Nehore, Miba del Nature, Dogores, tis not the Miba de Nature, Tension, Tension, Miba del Nehore, as soon or what. Chola Sembigi, Gachinla, Jidar Tapa Michurte, Michur Warsati.
If a crazed elephant were to break loose, it would cause so much destruction. Hence, it's imperative that it becomes tethered to a mighty pillar, a pillar that is so powerful that it will lead to this crazed elephant being subdued. In this way, it will cause no harm. It can cause no destruction because it is bound to this mighty pillar. So this is what we need to do with our mind. It is by focusing our mind on the Dharma topic of our choice that we tether our mind to the Dharma. And this is done through relying on mindfulness and vigilance.
Miba dela dene, anugum jatan chikche, Dayan jig Suzuki, Miba jigla dene, gum mogovache, Yan Suzuki samnoti, Dekaran Gijo Gomyara Shungore, Benanga Jugi Shine Benadamia Bokum Seada, Dongbani Gum Seada, Dinchidu, Benji Miba di Dongbani, Miba Yudi, Dongbani che. Delia Dangi Dongbani, Chela, sitting at Dongbani Gumgis in it, that's so sugar Kaling, Kaling, Dongbani Gumgis to Chedi, Ched, Dongbani Lamino Gumgis, said the Gum Che said. Chizan Delamino Gumgis, it is some time do, Daga Karaganisha or a senate, Chizadang and the Samloti, Miu, Dongbani, Delia, Gachina, Gawana Shindida, and Dongbani the chair. Della, and the same theatre, but Della Tichidu, me chair. And it shower Chita Tapas, Tichidu Mina shower, so Chita Tapas. They like Tichidu Misha, then Michoa said to five Shalia, Shanda Samtana, Tombani, Mami Bache, Shandashi Miru, or Chesa, Sem Namieda, and she Guevi on the Matawache, Delia Michoa said to Guevachena, Shanda Samtan recording, Tombani, Shaji Shanda Samtan. Namia Yada Gobaches, Namiada, Gueve Wongi Macho, Madawache, Delia, and Tomba Yutomba, Tichidu Minicha, what he said, Donda, Chola, Sembi, Kachenla, Chidaratawa, Michova said, Chola, Che said, Yu, Semki, Gangla, missing you, Tomba Yiche, Tomba Yiche, there, Kachin, Nachin, Kawati, Della Range Sem Miba, Tomba Delia, and Semti. Chitar Tabas, tell it to the nation or Goba the Namia said.
What hopefully is clear from my explanation thus far, that this is referring to when one is engaging in meditation. When one is going to embark on meditation, one will have in mind what you are going to meditate on. So that it will be the topic of the Dharma that one is going to meditate on. In our analogy here, that will be the mighty pillar to which one is going to tether your mind or bind your mind. So let's say you're going to meditate on, say, impermanence or on emptiness. Then that will be the meditation topic that you will focus your mind on. You'll tie your mind, tether your mind to this mighty topic of the Dharma and meditate on it single-pointedly, not allowing one's mind to be distracted elsewhere, to either be agitated or excited or distracted elsewhere, but remain on this one topic.
Adinache, that Shinero is to be not associated Sangi, Penacundrachili, Mine, Shine to be in the nigger some danger, Shine to be na, Cesada, me big chase, Sosuke, Delia, Yamlin Jag, Kelang by Che, Sangi, Goody like me, and to be say Kelang by Che, me, Della, Sangi, Goodisha, Che said, Tell me, Della, and Rangi, Sem, the Niki Mu. Gashindi, that same Mipa, Gashindi Gunda Gudishe. Jason Delayan, same day, Zidu, nature, Jidar Tapa, said same day, Langbochi, the topic, Dash, Gawa, Dash, Najinji, same day, and the chick. Good Zidu means Shan Mipa Macho, Zidu minute your warriors,
where you certainly will have come across this illustration, will also be in the context of cultivating single-pointed concentration, calm abiding, where one will tether one's mind to the object of meditation, which is commonly presented as that of a Buddha image or the image of the Buddha. And then one will try and hold that image clearly, vividly, without distraction or excitement, and keep that object as vividly clear as possible. So there, the object of meditation would be the image of the Buddha, and we want to try and cultivate one's concentration in this way. So there, the same analogy and technique is introduced.
On the measure, in the other baby, Kunji Taxi, Daddy, Ogi Taxi, that me but teachers of a member, Jebache, or Taxi. In the other baby, Kunji Taxi. Denegi yu mibadele zechidu neje bezu zunru je bezu jidu zechidu neje du shidu ane kabrela ane sosugi shijingi sosugi mibade pa ane shandagu shogudu chogumudu susen daohores daohores shijingi daohores dedar bebe kunje das jisan denegi Mibad Zechidu, Mibad Shine, Gudila, Mina Zechidu, Neche, Dus Gombe, Gabla, Gabriel, Sosugi, Shishingi, Mibad Shanpa, Shogu, Shordu, Shomendu, Dustina, Dawores. That is Dache, Tinigita, Mibad Shan, Shordu, and Jambi, gets in, Yan Mibadella, Jampatenji, Mibadel, Migores.
Then the final line in the Tibetan, which is our first line, thoroughly and diligently check. So what one needs to check thoroughly and diligently is that one's mind is tethered to the virtuous object. So whatever it is you're meditating on, whether it's cultivating calm abiding in relation to an image of the Buddha, or meditating on impermanence or emptiness, whatever it may be, one needs to thoroughly and diligently check that one is abiding on or engaging with, abiding on the object or engaging with the object. And this then is done with mindfulness and vigilance.
Gombe Kabla, the Negi Shishingi, Mipa Sagudu Misu, then the Chinwa Kidu Mindu, and the Mipa Pan, Shana Yingu Mindu, that dark said the Negi not diet, Shishingi diet, and that's all Yungurwad. She's a Shishingi Jingle Ligu Mindu Tago, the dark Tanichi, Chinwaki Shishin, you have a hako when I asked Chinwa the Sag, Champion Danger, Chinwa Sag, Taptangurwa. That Mipa Segu do a mindo. And Mipa Segumena, and Segu Yungumeva, and Shishingi, the Segumeva Howard, the name and Jambi Tinji, and Mipa the Sartaya. That Mipa said in the Govaki, when I had Jambi Shishin Howard, Yajim Jambi Tinji, then just Yajima, Sim Pam Martaya, La Soba Dinigi, Naswashing, the Shinigi Yamnaji, Kumbi Kabla, Dinny Tablam, Nasochura, just a dig of Suda, Dinny Shevores, a Sungor than that.
And likewise, in the context of developing single-pointed concentration, one's vigilance will not only be checking if one is abiding on the object, say the image of a Buddha, but vigilance will also be checking the quality of abiding on the object, looking, for example, whether laxity or sluggishness is present in the mind. It will be checking whether the object is clear or not, as well as mentioned earlier, looking if the mind is distracted or excited. So vigilance is on the lookout for anything that is impeding the quality of the meditation. So it would not be satisfied merely with the object being held or engaging with the object, but would also look at the vigilance, would be also aware of the quality of the engagement with the object, ensuring, for example, laxity hasn't arisen.
유다 유전의 샤제 되네 샘티 유텔라 미네 제바제 네 기치기치 지바 네 기알 니르 가서레 다와냐마 여바 다든 마지루바 니마 계신 여바 드림메바 두스네 기치기치 지루바 삼다디게 미다바 삼다디게 유지레 미제디 샘지 미제 기치기 지바 삼다야 되네게 신의 공야디게 꾸르 미네 신의 공유 유지레 미데 샘디 유텔라 미베텔레 제시레 미노 공야 동반요 공야다 다음에 보고나 되네지 수차상 저기 유지레 미네 유진기 파단에 공야될 순고래지.
This approach, this way of utilizing vigilance is not only in the case of cultivating calm abiding, but also in the instances, in the meditations of analytical meditation. For example, if one's meditating, as mentioned earlier, on impermanence or on selflessness, then vigilance is aware of both the object and the consciousness engaging in the meditation. So ensuring that the object of meditation has not been lost. So if one is meditating on impermanence, the vigilance will ensure that one is reflecting on impermanence and hasn't wandered off to something else, reflecting on the change of days, change of seasons, whatever the approach one is taking. But also, so that in this way, vigilance is aware that the object that one has decided to meditate on, that is what the mind is engaging with. And the vigilance will ensure that the quality of the mind that is meditating on impermanence is also excellent, that the mind itself isn't sluggish or engaging in the object in a weak manner. So therefore, vigilance both is aware of the object as well as, or the topic of meditation, as well as the consciousness engaging in the meditation, the object and object possessor.
저기 잠바 공야다 니제 공야다 장슈셈 공세디 나디 유지를 샤네 유진디게 파 미네 공야디 차고 말에 나디 공나디 가가 차고래 제사다 미보다 넘버 자외게 지 소수게 삼로디 디 모르게지 공야들라 시고래 제사다 메베네 장슈셈 세디 미유디 아니까 소래 고바 가르선 셈전 탐지기도 한다 ane sanje kopon topor sho sembege samba chumame bedela ane jige janju semsi gorwa denege samlo de janju semsi gorwa jesa da janju sem gomsi de ngaro samlo dina shin chi kieshe samlo koran dina ji kieje ne samda de la janju sem gomba si gore mida wal pa yudil ba mikdane gomgorwa 다데디 전주심 고미야디 미 파딱 마다지 코론 심 코론 디게 주고로와 게 주는 고미야디 주고로와 디랑 삼나디에 주고로와
Different on other topics of analytical meditation, vigilance plays a similar role, but there is a slight difference in the effect of the meditation. So in the previous illustrations of impermanence and emptiness, this is the topic being meditated on by the consciousness. But with other analytical meditation topics, such as love and compassion or bodhicitta, the meditator is looking to cultivate that within their mind. In other words, that their mind arises as love, as compassion, as bodhicitta. So that's a different approach, when one is meditating, say, on impermanence or selflessness. There one is meditating on that object, whereas with love, compassion, and bodhicitta, one's mind itself is arising in the aspect of love, compassion, or bodhicitta.
제사당 하나 중에 전주 샘곰세대 땅에 샘제 탐제교든 산지 고바 토벌쇼 샘베 삼다이 차고 봐. 디 삼다이 전주 코론 산지 고바 토벌쇼 샘베 삼노디 곰바 디 삼노랑 삼되바마도 삼노디기 유지를 미지에 곰고 말와. 코 삼노 코론랑 삼노디 샘제 탐 산지 고바 토벌쇼 샘베 삼노디 모기 주제 디 가나 다가랑 두신 곰고 계주제 되고 봐. 디자다 고 전주 샘곰세다. 디 대시 동반이 곰세디 유지를 동반이 파샤 아니 샘디기 판이 동반이 딜파 미체 공고로와 다데디 전주 샘디 곰세디 유지를 제 델미는 공고 말한테 샘지 곰세디 샘제 탐제 상여고방 토벌쇼 샘비가 삼로디 수수기를 원도 규르치오제 깨주제 샤고로와 이 전주 샘 곰바시고로와.
So for example, when one is meditating on bodhicitta, this thought, may all sentient beings achieve enlightenment. I will lead all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment. This is a thought one is generating within oneself. One isn't out there thinking, having as an object each and every single sentient being, but one is generating in one's own mind, this mind of bodhicitta, which is this expression of, I will become a Buddha in order to lead all sentient beings to enlightenment. So this is a mind, the essence of bodhicitta itself arises within one's own mind. That is quite different from when one is meditating on emptiness. One will be meditating on a particular object, perhaps the self, and recognize that it's empty of existing by way of its own nature. So that is quite a different meditative experience. One is, in terms of emptiness, meditating on some object. How does it exist in reality, and coming to recognize that? Whereas for minds like love, compassion, and bodhicitta, this is what one is actually meditating within one's own mind.
대시 최라 세디 아주 유최 다사 유 검사 유 다음에 봐도 동반이다 내려야 아주 시에마 대신에 쉬셔야돼 다 최라 세디 소수기다 냠는제기 케랑베기 최지라 세디다 이 동반이 공무인세비게 켈렌제 삼다 다음에 봐 공무인세다 미다 봐 공무인세다 대시 마슈 사바제 다 니에는 소수형이 땅이 자주 샘주 공기 샘비게 삼다 삼된 지달 케랑베기 최 소수게 고미에 케랑베 최 자주 샘 될야 아니 가와 따사기 가와디야 자주 샘디레 데니기 따사기 유다 고미에 니디 캬바르 메바는 지기로 로직이다 데레기 캬바 메바 데니기 지사다 따사기 샘디 샘자 탐지기 산요 고바 토벌쇼 샘비기 소승이 공부에서 베삼로디 다 소수기 샘 다하랑이야 아니 지다 따바 다하랑 미제 두신 공부고 그래서 우리가 샘 샘다 마야와지 샘자 탐지기 산요 고바 토벌쇼 샘 삼로 다하랑 땅제 두신 땅고 땅데 되고 그래서 지사디 나 데니기 샘자 산요 고바 토벌쇼 샘 삼땅데 갑라 어댕이 샘제를 최시긴 샘에 삼당배나 바 샘처로고 봐. 아니 샘제다 산요고 토벌쇼 샘에 삼다되고 어당이 직강아 유견들 로봇직인 샘이 진배 직다 로봇직인 샘에 삼다나야 샘도 처로고 봐. 바 유로고 봐. 제가 되네게 맞춰와치 다가랑 삼단 되고 그래서 그때 제가 샘제 탐지교도 능에 샘제다 산요고 토벌쇼 샘 삼로 다가랑 지두신 다가랑 삼제 되고 그래서
So looking at, in English, the second, third, and fourth line, that the crazed elephant mind has not become loose but remains tied to the mighty pillar of reflecting on the Dharma. So this, where the mighty pillar reflecting on the Dharma, this is your meditation topic. So it could be an object such as impermanence, or topic such as impermanence or emptiness, where one is meditating on something. Whereas it could also be a topic such as bodhicitta, where one is meditating that within one's mind, getting that to arise within one's own mind. So that would be the mighty pillar of the Dhamma. So this is your meditation topic that you're looking to tether your mind to, making sure it remains tied and doesn't become loose. So if it is a mind such as bodhicitta, one engages in the meditation and generates bodhicitta. And when this mind arises, may all sentient beings, I will lead all sentient beings to a state freed of suffering. May they be free from suffering. Then one just repeats this again and again, making one's mind very familiar with this. So this is an important step in the meditation. When you've gone through the various steps and you've then of the meditation, and then you've given rise to that understanding or realization, that you repeat that understanding so that you strengthen your familiarity to it. You don't allow your mind to wander off to something else, even if it appears related. So, for example, you generated your mind in this thought, may all sentient beings attain liberation, freedom from suffering. Then repeat that and abide with that. Don't allow your mind now to go to areas of expressing how you'll bring that about. I will help beings in this way. I'll practice generosity in that way. Then one is going away from what you are trying to cultivate. And you may be going away to wholesome, virtuous minds, but it's not the chosen topic of Dharma. It is not that particular mighty pillar that one has decided to cultivate in this meditation.
Bendigo simje damji yosanyo gowa towarsho sebe samdu chentagaraду shandash kaya masandu she samda de kabla dan de kabrelia Bendigo samda kabla chanda tenja oje jimichi da tuwo ki hewa sebe dan ji yongro de simpa churu gorang sa ha mo parale dini chud sim pa churu ya jungor ba a dini je de enza 대다르 베베 군예 다세 지사 데니게 셈니 셈전 산요 고방 토버쇼 오 셈베 삼나도 제데가 블라야 양 가브리엘야 시신기 셈디파 샨달을 최시 두드 조도 민도스파 베지 다고레서 시신기 다고레 지사 데데가르 데니게 소소에 샨달을 대서 젠베 샨레 예순 최소와 있나 안디지야 젠비게 투 야게 다랑 안디 지게스 셈 자주 셈 젠바들 바 땡고레스 지사 Bendigo mbebe tabo mbebe kunye dasel shijin pa dashi che semni pa dashi da Bendigo and dashi Bendigo pa yogu yobana cho pa yogu yobana namyo de song yue na chu yang jenbe ge jenje sem da ran da xiao le se da.
Again, the final line in the Tibetan, our first line, thoroughly and diligently check. So this is about utilizing mindfulness and vigilance throughout one's meditation, ensuring that one stays on that meditation topic, as just presented in the previous segment. Even if one is meditating on another virtuous topic, don't allow your mind to be drawn away. Remain on the particular topic that you have committed to developing within yourself. And also be on guard for distraction or mental excitement. For example, you may recall a conversation or hear a conversation outside, and immediately your mind follows that conversation. Then you need to be diligent. Even if what is being said or what you remember is something quite exciting, don't allow your mind to get caught up in that. You need to be vigilant and with great detail, so thoroughly bring your mind back and continue your meditation. Repeat the various steps to regenerate the mind that you are meditating on.
Jisada dinia anzu chela sempiki kashin la sedi sosu gangda gang gonggi nyamlen jigin sebiki keilen biki che tela an semde dangbo jesa del dagara mije dus sem shendo mayo macho je del dagara mije mi gore nyamlen je gore ese sungorba jesa dinia za dang anzu ge da jam 인지 검사해야 돼. 인지 검사해야 돼. 유지를 민에 파 검사의 차고 말 인지스랑의 셈디 나 인지 뭐 계죠 검사 차고 뭐 계죠지 계죠셔야 되라 인지 검사. 지다 인지 써야 돼. donda la semjen nga juge dambo semjen gi dunga da na sutike samda denegi dunga da suta dunga nyoda didu samda dene zada semje tamje dunga da jagodu sembe samda yodu dene semje tamje nga ni ju komse da semje tamje dunga da jawa sho sembe soso samlodi denegi samlodi kicho komya tela ane de ni ju kombasi yorwa de yu mi pa chile mine 공고 말씀 그런 랑게 셈디 셈전 탐주 동화단 자두게 삼바디 뭐 기주제 두세는 공미야들라 다니죠 공바나 잠바 공바사 두스 뭐 기는 공바지 올래
To cultivate any topic of the Dharma, you need to meditate on that particular topic repeatedly over a sustained period. This is how you develop habituation. So this is important. And also as part of this is when you gain experience of whatever it is you're meditating on, when it arises in your mind, abide with that. Don't immediately repeat the process and go into further repeated analysis, but abide with it. So you habituate yourself to this way of thinking. So this is important in all topics of the Dharma and is indispensable with those of love, compassion, and bodhicitta, because you are not merely meditating on something, but you are trying to get that to arise within you. So if you're meditating on compassion and you've meditated and cultivated the wish, may beings be freed from suffering. And this wish for beings to be freed from suffering is arising within you. That is the mind of compassion. So abide with it. Don't quickly go off and repeat the meditation or move to the next topic. Abide with it so you get familiar with it. This is important because what does it mean to be compassionate? It means this mind of compassion is abiding within you. So when you cultivate it in meditation, abide with it. Only when it dissipates, when it fades away, then resume the meditation and recultivate it.
제상저기 잠바다 니제당 다당념세다 안장슈 셈고마세들라 능 곰세디 소수기 대다 미바다 넘버 충부를 오르기는 공바세들라 미바다 넘버 충부기 오르기는 공바세들라 안내 가지고 장슈 셈고마세데 디네 공고거지 베네 장슈 셈세디 지단 미바 가와미선 상기미거바 제상 상기 고본 토벌쇼 셈베 삼노디 고 미바디 가르선 상기고 상기를 미 디네 넘버 가르선 디 토벌 되비 넘버 전제 디 토고도 토벌쇼 셈베 삼노와 지 장슈 셈 디네 쯤마마인 바질 장슈 셈세거와 제상 당 안주게 삼노디야 디네 쯤마마인 비기요 마데 디나신지 계획에 삼로 디나신지 계획에 삼다제 기주제 두신 파 고미야들라 다 장슈 공바시고 제가 셈제 탐지기 상요 고바 토벌쇼 셈베 삼로 디 장슈 나시 장슈 디기 셈제 탐지 상요 고바 토벌쇼 삼바 나시 미바 상게 상게라 미 넘버 디 토벌되기 토벌되기 넘버 전 차대로 제가 디나신 징안들 미바 상게 고바 토벌쇼 셈베 삼로 기주의 고미야들라 다 미바다 넘버 충분히 모르겠네 공바시고 되네.
Within the plethora of analytical meditation topics, there are this group, such as love, compassion, equanimity, and bodhicitta, where one is not merely meditating on these, but one is meditating them. In other words, cultivating these qualities within one's own mind. So one's striving to arise, for one's mind to arise in the very aspect of the object of meditation. So if one is meditating on love, wanting all beings to be happy, this mind of love that you're meditating on is what you want to generate within your own mind. So therefore, one goes through the various steps of the meditation, which will result in that objective, that mind, such as love, rising within oneself. Then one abides with it, generates one's habituation or familiarity with this mind of love. In this way, in those moments, one is substantially more loving. And this is what one is striving to become. So therefore, when engaging in these meditation topics, it's imperative that one abides with the mind when it arises within.
제사다 곰디라 나 직다마다 연구를 하던 가서 다음에 보고 동반유 곰바 미다보 곰바세다 우중고 공바세디 차상 미버실에 되는 공부 우중고사데 삼디 우코라를 받다지고 미 우파중화도 우번일에 따는 공야지 미버되는 공고래 진짜 유지를 샤지 유진이 받다는 공고로 진짜 제소 니나신 안저기 즉 달미 저 공바제도 되갑라 공자사다 직강부 마다 마사를 주송와서 지리야 자선 미버되네 되는 공야라서 받아 공자데 남에나서 용어도 제사 소수기 가래 공부에 되는지 공부인 셈백이 케일라백이 최질이야 되는 셈디데 다라 따지는 도스는 공부를 해야지 나 인보에 될래야 안 셈디 파 초도 민도 요구리 즉 초도 민도의 시신에 따진도 공부를 해야지 순고로 와
So there are many different objects of meditation. So here, dividing them into two types. There are those that one as an object that one meditates on, or meditation topic one meditates on. So, for example, it could be one's breath, and one is observing the rise and flow of one's breath. Could be impermanence or selflessness. So here one is focused on the particular object of meditation. And then there is the type that I've just spoken of, love, compassion, equanimity, bodhicitta, where one is striving for the mind itself to arise in the aspect of the object. So this isn't the case when one's meditating on the breath or on impermanence or on selflessness. You're not trying to get the mind to arise in the aspect of what you're meditating on. But that is the case with love, compassion, equanimity, and bodhicitta. So whichever topic of meditation you are meditating on, the use of vigilance and mindfulness is imperative, because it's these two that will ensure that one remains on that topic and that the quality of one's meditation, so not just that one remains on the object, but the object possessor, the quality of the meditating mind remains excellent.
nandala dang jugi chanshu sem komdi kabla ta dangbo chanshu sem gomya la ya an chanshu sem ki mi ba kan sile mi ko gore an samlo kan stang go gore yu chanshu sem ki yu kan sile se du sine jeba cheje ani chanshu sem ki yu dangbo ni ju gom gore se da denege ko da chanshu sem ki mi ba de sangi ko fa ya mi ko gore se da on du sine samda de jewom lo cha go ro jewom ko yu kan se mi ba kan mi gore kom na kan gom gore se du sine samda de chanshu sem yu ngo se de kan se 뭐 하고 봐제 미바 하고 봐제 니규 아니 자주 니지 길기 되네 하고 봐야 돼 하고 해야 돼 되네게 삼다지 제바제 된다 뭐 하고 해야 돼 제홈 제거래 나 되네 하고 전에는 세미나를 심대 심제 탐지기도 다 상유고 뭐 토프쇼 셈베 삼로 두 다가라 계주제 아니 현 강야 삼마다에 다가랑 계진 바셈 중부 중시리 제대 돼야 될이야 다 된 되베나 디 조금로 자고로 봐
Therefore, the way one engages in meditation is actually to use a combination of analytical meditation followed by placement meditation. And one wouldn't just do one of each, but it would be a cycle. So one first utilizes analytical meditation. So let's take as an illustration bodhicitta. Before one engages in the meditation, one has learnt about the topic. So one knows that the objective of this meditation is to become a Buddha for the sake of all suffering beings. So this is the objective. And one will also know the various steps of the meditation that one engages in so as to generate bodhicitta. So this is the knowledge that has been gathered prior and learned. So now one can sit quietly and reflect on the various steps of that meditation to give rise to the goal of generating bodhicitta, this determination to become a Buddha for the sake of others. So one goes through the various steps of the analytical meditation, and when then the mind of bodhicitta arises within you, you abide with it. So this is the placement meditation. One's mind abides, or one places one's mind just here. One doesn't, in other words, one is not now engaging in further analysis. One is just abiding with the mind of bodhicitta, strengthening thereby one's habituation to the mind of bodhicitta. Then when that fades, the mind of bodhicitta that has been cultivated fades, then one will repeat the process of analytical meditation until bodhicitta is regenerated, and then will abide with it. Now again, placement meditation, and so forth. This is the way that one engages to first develop bodhicitta in a contrived manner, and by continuing in this way, it eventually will become uncontrived or spontaneous.
The same launching man, I same the part, Namia, the part, Chicazella, Chocho, just that in the Jangdor, Jambi, Gablia, Sosu, Gang, Gomiaki, Chetelia, and the same the Zishi to nature, same the Delia, Taran, Shache, and the Shandam, Shanda Madawache, Taran, nature, Gomburis, Delia, and the Jan Shishin, the part, Da, and the Jambi, Zinchin, Gomburis, the name word did it, situation.
So in brief, this verse is saying that recognize that your mind is still like this crazed elephant. It's so easily distracted, and it can cause such distraction. Therefore, it's imperative you develop single-pointed concentration. And to develop single-pointed concentration, you have to rely on mindfulness and vigilance.
Dagi digar che and dedar yila sosortak.
Then the 41st verse. Joyfully strive by all means in meditative stabilization. Do not stray for even a single moment. What is my mind experiencing here? Analyze each mind in that way.
Nadi gamba na dorachi. Tadanala chineja dingi Zhenbani is Yu did a Zichi beating it in Comial Sungorde. Yu Ching the Jing on Zugi, Yu that is been a senior Jubaina, Penish good son, you could mean a senior Jubaina, the nigger Damia Bada, Dombani, Zichi in the Combaina, that you Damia Bachilla, you did me by you the Damia Balmiche, Zichi to Dingitin, Ya, Combaina, Jine, Dingin, Zichi to Nibe Dingin. 专注于切去别做切去都现在这几个研究公明的 same 的机器下把没错啊这大概让这就network 的才送过今年定正专把你机器之间没错啊噻的
This verse, 41st verse, is similar to the one we've just looked at. So look in the first two lines, joyfully strive by all means in meditative stabilization. So meditative stabilization, or just stabilization, is the mental factor that gets developed into single-pointed concentration, and even further. So it's this is the mind that is developed into to be so powerful that it is suitable to be called single-pointed concentration. So one needs to joyfully strive or engage with enthusiastic perseverance to develop meditative to develop one's meditative stabilization to the point where one has calm abiding, where one can meditate with single-pointed concentration. And the second line, and one should not stray for even a single moment. So one is striving to develop one's stabilization to the point where one does not stray from the object of meditation, say the image of a Buddha, for even a moment.
Andine zada denige keji micho zeche ne hores jeza dine za dage yi de karcheche dedar yi la sosor ta se jeza de sosyo du chikombe sosyo ge dage yi samloti ne gawala jodu denige jene ba shi shingi ba yane dedar yi la sosor ta yane ya to ba ta hores dakshi gore dene tane dene semdi pa xian li ya cho da ne xian da yan wa song wa hao go ne Bendigo zinjie yanja yu de dagara zhe Nepal Bendigo zingo re sai sungor.
The third and fourth line. What is my mind experiencing here? Analyze each mind in that way. Yeah, whilst one is developing one's stabilization, trying to get to the point where one doesn't stray from the object even for a moment, how do we know whether we are straying or not? It's by utilizing our vigilance. So our vigilance is checking What is my mind experiencing here? Am I experiencing the image of the Buddha? Or have I been distracted to some other thought? And if distraction is noted by vigilance, immediately mindfulness recalls the object of meditation, say the image of the Buddha, and engages with the object of meditation. So in this way, each mind needs to be looked at closely. What am I experiencing here? Am I experiencing the object of my meditation, the meditation topic, or have I lost it?
Dene matana mupa shukshin le do some mupa le dene chiki naktom dora cha dene ba ni ku ni mupa ke dene mubu on ke jen dene jela ni ku ro ya ding an zulia parche shesho chago ran zulia dambo kom jegan zule dene za dele ya desa di jen shi jing ge semdi ba chi chou du minus ba ya ya da shi shi jing ba dene ge chou ha ho ne lamsa jamba tian ju oda chou ru sem mi ba da ga ra sha ho le se jamba tian mi ba de mi ya da 야 지게 시신기 어떤 sem 무바로 시용되면 제바지 무바이다 어 무바 용도 삼제 한지 무바 사야기 잼비게 봐 무바 사지 잼바 된지야 유디래 미바자 저거에서 제가 대달 일을 소소다 야네 야도 두신의 잼 시신에다 잼비기 안데 하고 진고고래 제상 기지 미초와데 유디래 내바지 두신의 띵기진들 진고래에서 순고로
As beginners, you'll have a lot of experience of sitting in meditation and the mind just goes off all over the show. This is how it is for us. The mind is so easily distracted. But it's not only that the mind is distracted from the topic of meditation, but also the quality of the mind is poor. So our vigilance must watch, not only watch for a distracted mind, but must watch for the quality of the meditating mind, looking out for lethargy or fatigue or laxity, so that the way that one is meditating on the object, one may be holding the object, but in a way that's quite lax, or the mind may be dull and foggy. So therefore, vigilance needs to be aware of both the topic of meditation, whether that is being engaged with, as well as whether the engaging consciousness is of sufficient quality or not. And as soon as it notices any fault in either in that the object has been lost or the quality with which the mind is engaging with the meditation topic, as soon as vigilance notices any fault, mindfulness then comes in to remedy the situation.
And the thing komyodo mipa tsechido neche michowaje and patsechido nebaina and that nebige tencharab leado na tikarungora senda jinwa deligorwa jinwa jesa dine zada tsechido mi semde yutela tsechido nedebaina ya keji michowa tsechido nedebaina ta shijingi jinwa deligimene yane ya da gores jesa jinwa de yane ya do shijingi jinwa duemido 파다 되는 하고도야 잼베 진지 봐 진화의 세계 도신 공고래 세계 순고래.
So at first, for someone trying to develop single-pointed concentration, the distraction from the object is the main problem. When the meditators become quite skilled and is able to abide with the object for a bit longer with less distraction, then lethargy starts to become much more of a problem, where the way that the object is engaged with is quite poor. It's not at all clear or vivid.
안도나라 디지당부의 측제되기 지당 저기 샘디 가래 공부이나 될 공del이야 안지 미버지래 미네 제주도 공부 공야 용고래 랑게 샘디 루디 오게죠 공야 제주 유의 미버 멤버제 유 아니 샘공 오게 전시 샘의 인제라서 오게 공부 용고래 제사 되네 공나서 용고래 제사 디수 차상 가래 공부이나 소수 당부 디 공기 샘비게 타 제비고 공부에서 배삼로 지금 체시저와 되네기 공야기 미바다 가라야 샘디 电解，那相对没错吧？这点了呀，这些些电解呢，公布的也是些，送多当波这些的。但你把这个这些的当然就，但得吃上面这几笔定义成功没有对，有了这些都专业这些都你被定义成功没有对，那这些讲没错啊，这点了呀，这些些个什么的怕想到了，抽个对，做个对，民族生别个这。谢谢杨的杨到大，今天准备电竞的，有天的这几个年把的公布的也是些，都送我到端来的。是说，但是的当波你这个，反正现在当波这个当波写这个，这就那边定义成，但没被预见的，没把这类明年公拿。今天啊，这没把没预见没把这没把这什么可能，就是什么的我见的公拿。내내 송도 자상 곰 나서 망부여 되지 될래 달곰 나가 망부여 되게 지르도 와但是你把的了今年定义成准备的是的给这个没说啥的块但自己那边定义成预计了预了明年这就的那把公面的
40th and 41st verse really work together. The 40th verse was talking about that when one is meditating on a topic, one is either going to be meditating on the topic, such as whether it's impermanence or emptiness, for example, or one is going to be meditating the topic. In other words, trying to have that topic of meditation arise as the mind, or the mind arise as the topic of meditation. In other words, that if one is meditating on love, equanimity, compassion, or bodhicitta, that one isn't just meditating on that object, but one is meditating the object. In other words, trying to have the mind arise as what one is meditating on, say, the mind become the mind of love, and so forth. And then that links with the 41st verse, that whatever it is one is meditating on, one needs to try and develop single-pointed concentration, develop meditative stabilization to the point where one does not stray from what one is meditating for even a moment. And to do this, one relies on mindfulness and vigilance, ensuring always being vigilant about what the mind is experiencing or what the mind is engaging with.
안don다 알아야서 곰세 될이야 다 제곰다 조금세다 되니게 최고래 지나 되니게다 곰 지나디 곰대 제곰다 조금 야지 곰나 될이야 곰당 될이야 아니 셈디 미버지래 미네 곰나 직제 다 되니 멤버지 한 셈코롱 지금 오 끼주죠 곰이야 직제 다 되니가 곰나로지 나가지 미라 뭐도와
Therefore this topic of meditation, one should understand there are many different types of meditation, not just meditation topics, but types of meditation. So most commonly one will hear about analytical and placement meditation, but also within analytical there is where one is meditating on the object, where one is meditating the object. In other words, trying that to have that topic arise, the mind arise as that topic. So therefore there are these different types of meditation.
然后这个电系公股才是东岸电报等工作电报公司的，这说结果嘛人嘛都自己就好妙嘛嘞。其他东岸电报公司东岸电报我那时都先新旧些结巴起的，结巴起些东岸电报些这个那时我好会个结巴起些都三大原则三大东岸电报我好会的嘞三大的嘞东岸电报公司我嘞，工作电报公司的。 동아 덴비게 유 요아도 군중 가르가르 시아지사 녀모디데 델레트니 용도와 디리도 와서베 다 동아 덴비게 유 아니 녀모보 군중데 하고야 델레 제바체 수 삼다 제바체 삼다 델레 제홈스 월데지 군주데 바 콤바스 제자데 군주데 바 콤세 동아데 바 콤세데 델레 제주데 미녀 콤야스 가요 말와 제자데 데네자 데소 야 즉 심주제 제바체 금세 삼다 제바 동아데 바 하고야다 뭐 하고야다 군주 덴바세 금세 삼다 제바제 금세 안에 군주 덴바 뭐 하고야 동안 덴바 군주 덴바 디르샤스다 하고야 되게 다도 삼다 제바제네 고면 삼다에 들레다 제홈스 동안 덴바다 군주 덴바 곰스고 제홈 제바데스고 근데 조홈스가요 말았어.
Well, topics such as the first of the Four Noble Truths, the first two, one is only engaging in analytical meditation. One isn't utilizing placement meditation. So, for example, when one is meditating on suffering, one is using analysis and investigating cyclic existence, recognizing how wherever one is, whether in the suffering lower realms or even the so-called higher realms, one will suffer. So one meditates there on suffering. Then this is just a process of analytical meditation. One isn't trying to have the mind arise as suffering. Likewise, with the second noble truth, that of the origin of suffering, one is looking at where our suffering comes from, how it comes about. So there one is meditating the origin of suffering. And again, one isn't trying to generate the mind in the origin of suffering. One is solely engaging in analytical meditation.
아래 대디는 이제 봐줘 곰세대 가르스는 아주 삼로대 한지 유이들의 제바책이 로디 막 뉴르죠 하고 해야 되는데 패치신의 의미에서 하고 해야래야 먼저 삼로디 샤라 곰신지 뉴바시고 맞잖아디 데니마 의미에서 유던다다 하고 해 삼로 야네야도 다도 데니게 하고 해 리버디 바 서버 저저 곰수 마도네 야야 누구로 봐 제자디 제 곰세디 간질에 이제 곰세디 직야 곰시를 텐데 야야 줘야 되지 그거로 봐다.
And a further key point to once again make is that this word meditation is the word for familiarization. So this is why one needs to engage in the same topic of meditation repeatedly over the same sustained period, hearing teachings on the same topic, reading on the same topic, meditating on the same topic. This is how one gains familiarity with it. This is how one meditates on it. Because again, this word meditation is the word for familiarization or habituation. So we should understand them as really being the same word, as being the same word. So therefore, there is this need for repetition. In that way, one becomes familiar. If one wants to understand reality, one needs to for example, one needs to reflect on this repeatedly over a sustained period so that one becomes habituated to how things abide in reality. Okay, then thank you. Then we can conclude there for tonight. Thank you. But if you have questions, then please feel free to ask. But then thank you.